Good evening. Howdy. Back for another story time. This evening I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do a two-parter. I want to read a particular story called Faithful John. It's a bit long, so I'm going to break it into two parts. As always, please do watch my video called Disclaimer, not for kids, because these fairy tales are not for little children, and especially this one. Faithful John is one of the more disturbing, I would say, fairy tales. Okay, so, sorry Marina. We got Marina joining us this evening. So, we're going to get started with A Grimm Fairy Tale, Faithful John, Part 1. Try not to knock Marina off the couch here. There was once an old king who, having fallen sick, thought to himself, "This is very likely my deathbed on which I am lying." Then he said, "Let Faithful John be sent for." Faithful John was his best loved servant, and was so called because he had served the king faithfully all his life long. And when he came near the bed, the king said to him, "Faithful John, I feel my end drawing near, and my only care is for my son. He is yet of tender years, and does not always know how to shape his conduct. And unless you promise me to instruct him in all his actions, and be a true foster father to him, I shall not be able to close my eyes in peace." "Then," answered Faithful John, I will never forsake him. I will serve him faithfully, even though it should cost me my life." And the old king said, "Then I die, being of good cheer and at peace." And he went on to say, "After my death, you must lead him through the whole castle, into all the chambers, halls, and vaults, and show him the treasures that therein lie. But the last chamber in the long gallery, which lies hidden, the picture of the princess of the golden palace, you must not show him. If he were to see that picture, he would directly fall into so great a love for her that he would faint with the strength of it, and afterwards, for her sake, run into great dangers. So you must guard him well." And as Faithful John gave him his hand upon it, the old king became still and silent, laid his head upon the pillow, and he died. When the old king was laid in his grave, Faithful John told the young king what he had promised to his father on his deathbed, and he said, "And I will certainly hold to my promise and be faithful to you as I was faithful to him, even though it should cost me my life." When the days of mourning were at an end, Faithful John said to the prince, "It is now time that you should see your inheritance. I will show you all the paternal castle." Then he led him all over the place, upstairs and downstairs, and showed him all the treasures and the splendid chambers. Only one chamber he did not open, that in which the perilous picture hung. Now the picture was so placed that when the door opened, it was the first thing to be seen, and was so wonderfully painted that it seemed to breathe and move, and in the whole world there was nothing more lovely or more beautiful. And the young king noticed how Faithful John always passed this one door, and he asked, "Why do you not undo this door?" "There is something inside that would terrify you," answered he. But the king answered, "I've seen the whole castle, and I will know what is in here also." And he went forward and he tried to open the door by force. And then Faithful John called him back, and he said, "I promised your father on his deathbed that you should not see what is in that room. It might bring great misfortune on you and me were I to break this promise." But the young king answered, "I shall be undone if I do not go inside that room. I shall have no peace, day or night, until I have seen it with these eyes, and I will not move from this place until you have unlocked it." And then Faithful John, he saw that there was no help for it. And he chose out the key from the big bunch with a heavy heart and many sighs. And when the door was open, he walked in first, and he thought that perhaps by standing in front of the king, he might hide the picture from him. But it was no good. The king stood on tiptoe, and he looked over his shoulder. And then when he saw the image of the lady that was so wonderfully beautiful and so glittering with gold and jewels, he fell on the ground powerless. Faithful John helped him up and took him to his bed. And he thought with sorrow, "Ah me, the evil has come to pass. What will become of us?" Then he strengthened the king with wine until he came to himself, and the first words that he said were, "Oh, the beautiful picture! Whose portrait is it?" "It is the portrait of the princess of the Golden Palace," answered Faithful John. And the king said, "My love for her is so great that if all the leaves of the forest were tongues, they could not utter it. I stake my life on the chance of obtaining her, and you, my faithful John, must stand by me." The faithful servant considered for a long time how the business should be begun. It seemed to him that it would be a difficult matter to come only at the sight of the princess, so he thought out a way, and he said to the king, "All that she has about her is of gold: tables, chairs, dishes, drinking cups, bowls, and all the household furniture. In your treasury are 5 tons of gold. Let the goldsmiths of your kingdom work it all up into all kinds of vessels and implements, into all kinds of birds and wild creatures and wonderful beasts, such as may please her. Then we will carry them off with us and go and seek our fortune." The king had all the goldsmiths fetched, and they worked day and night until at last some splendid things were got ready. When a ship had been loaded with them, Faithful John put on the garb of a merchant, and so did the king, so as the more completely to disguise themselves. Then they journeyed over the sea, and went so far that at last they came to the city where the princess of the Golden Palace dwelt. Faithful John told the king to stay in the ship and to wait for him. "Perhaps," said he, "I shall bring the princess back with me, so take care that everything is in order, and let the golden vessels be placed about, and the whole ship be adorned." Then he gathered up in his apron some of the golden things, one of each kind, and he landed, and he went up to the royal castle. And when he reached the courtyard of the castle, there stood by the well a pretty maiden who had 2 golden pails in her hand, and she was drawing water with them. And as she turned round to carry them away, she saw the strange man, and asked who he was. And he answered, "I am a merchant." And he opened his apron and let her look within it. "Ah, what beautiful things!" cried she, and settling down her pails, she turned and she looked at the golden toys all over. She looked at them one after another, and then she said, "The princess must see those. She takes so much pleasure in gold things that she will buy them all from you." Then she took him by the hand, and she led him, for she was the chambermaid. And when the princess saw the golden wares, she was very pleased, and said, "All of these are so finely worked that I should like to buy them of you." But Faithful John said, "I am only the servant of a rich merchant, and what I have here is nothing compared to what my master has in his ship. And the cunningest and costliest things that were ever made of gold." The princess then wanted it all to be brought to her, but he said, "That would take many days, so great is the number of them, and so much space would they occupy that there would not be enough room for them in your house." But the princess's curiosity and fancy grew so much that at last she said, "Lead me to the ship. I will myself go and see your master's treasures." Okay, we're going to stop there. That's the first part 1 of Faithful John. And I will come back with part 2 and finish the story in the next one. So thanks for listening. Oops. Sorry, Marina. Y'all be sweet.